I'm Richard Porter.
I'm Jonny Smith.
And this is On the Other Side of Things, the Smith & Sniff spin-off in which we answer your questions. Before we get going with listeners' questions, a small piece of housekeeping. First of all, if you have a question for us, it's hello@smithandsniff.com. We said a few weeks ago, if you have a question, mark your subject line, start it with Otosot, and then you put something else if you want to afterwards, if you've got a question. We've now started getting lots of emails from people who are just putting Otosot in the subject line but don't have a question.
What?
They just have an email they want to send us, and it's getting really confusing. So if you have a question that you want to be answered on this show, put Otosot at the start of the subject line. If you're just sending us an email about something else, we do read all the emails, but don't put Otosot, because it's throwing our really shaky filing system out of whack when we try and find some questions.
So it's a tight ship that we run here, folks. and you know it.
It's one of those canal boats that sits a bit worryingly low at one end, is what this is. But anyway, just if you don't mind, that would help us enormously to try and manage things. Anyway, let's start with a question from a listener called Mark, who says, I have found myself in a position of great fortune. I've come into some money and I'm looking at getting a second car to go alongside my electric family car. The car will mainly be a nice weather vehicle and, to be honest, a commute every now and again. I'm not in any rush and will quite happily wait for the right car. So far, I've rounded it to two, a Peugeot 106 Rally and a Mark 1 rot-free MX-5. The desired criterion are manual gears, small, lightweight, not too many miles, good service history, and a maximum budget of £16,000.
That's a good budget.
Do you have any other good ideas that I can add to the list, or any surprises I may not have thought of?
What was his criteria again? Just quickly.
Manual, small, lightweight, and then ideally low miles and good service history.
So he said a Mark 1 MX-5 and a Peugeot
106 Rally. Now,
106.
With his budget, you can get some absolute delights for either of those cars.
You really could. You could get an RS MX-5, RS edition.
I mean, you could get an Elise for that money, couldn't you?
Yes, you absolutely could. You get an Exige.
Well, I mean, either way.
VX220, turbo.
Lightweight and manual gears, I don't know, if it's going to be an occasional car, you might as well, you don't need the practicality.
No.
You might as well go all out on the fun. And what could be more fun than
could you get
a Elise?
You could get a Trevor for that, Rich. You could get a serious Trevor. You could get a really serious,
a silly Trevor,
a proper. We're talking helmsman vehicles here now. All of a sudden,
I would slightly worry about that, because you could. Of that, I'm certain. But just would you?
I'd love a Trevor.
Be confident it was that. Let's see.
I've thought about them a lot lately.
Have you?
Yeah, a Cerbera. A TVR Cerbera in the full 90s purple.
Yeah.
I just think it's such a statement of a car. I think it looks amazing, and I know it will be ridden with faults. However, there's various specialists you can take them to who will just iron out issues immediately. But I'm just thinking, for what did he say, 16 grand? I think you could get. I'm just going to pop onto Piston Heads. You
could get. I definitely, because I was looking at them not that long ago, just out of interest. You definitely could get. I mean, lots of Chimeras around.
Yes,
you might squeak a Griffith or a Cerbera for that money, but
I don't
you're
think
into the
can.
sort of.
No,
I think you're definitely into the Chimera territory for Mark's budget, or a sort of ratty old S or a Wedge from the 80s that you probably wouldn't want.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean,
you can't get a Cerbera anymore for 16. That's a real shame. I've totally slept on that.
Where are they up to?
30. 30.
Seriously?
Yeah, 32,
God.
35. Oh, no, the boat has sailed. Oh.
I mean, if they are around still and in good nick and in the hands of enthusiasts, which you'd hope if they're, it's that kind of car, and if they're advertising on Piston Heads and all the rest of it, then you'd sort of think probably a lot of the issues have been addressed.
Yeah. There are some chimeras in that price
things.
range, as you've already mentioned. Yes. You go chimera.
Well, it's certainly... Manual gears, yes. Small. Yeah, they are quite small, aren't they? Lightweight, yes. I feel like Mark, with his 106 Rally and Mark 1 MX-5 choices, is sort of erring towards light and revvy, and the TVR maybe too cruisery. But
what about a 205 Rally rather than a 106 Rally?
Like a left-hand drive proper Rally.
Yeah, that's what I'm... OG Rally. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
That could be nice, couldn't it?
Yes.
I might spend some money on that. You could go on, and if you didn't find one in the UK, you could go on an adventure off of France.
I'd even entertain a 205 XS, which I think Chris Monkey Harris says is the thinking person's 205 and more fun than a GTI or something.
Yeah, I'm down with that. And bollocks, if you're going to keep going
just
rally.
finding one. But then you see, brilliantly, Mark says he's not in a hurry, so he could...
enjoy the chase then.
I mean, as well, we're sort of going a bit more classic-y, aren't we? Because I was going to say, if you could track down an AX GT, then that's properly lightweight and manual gears and small and all the rest of it. But
hell, Citroen Visa GTI if you want a real unicorn.
Oh my God!
Wow!
I mean, you could devote the rest of your life to trying to find one of those in decent nick. But well, the thrill of the chase.
Indeed.
What else? I don't know. I was thinking again, as I semi-frequently do, the other day about the Suzuki Ignis Sport.
I love those.
A underrated connoisseur's car. But I mean, again, if you can find one well within budget.
I thought you were going to go into the A-Team theme narration then.
Oh.
If you want one and you can find one and you've got the money for one, please buy.
There's a restored 205 Rally, the proper left-hand drive one. Because for people who don't know, that there was a Rally in the UK, but it was really a bit more of a cosmetic job. The proper homologation special 1.3 litre 205 Rally was left-hand drive Euro only. So they're the ones you want if you want a really proper 205. Anyway, there's a restored one on Car and Classic at the moment in the UK for 14.5 grand. I mean, yes. If you've got a frivolous £16,000 to spend and you want to attract admiring glances from people who really know about cars, this one's been restored. It looks absolutely clean, as Robbie Coltrane might say, as I mentioned in the last podcast. It's a new fucking car! Underneath. Absolutely clean as a whistle. There's pictures in the ad of its restoration and respray, so that's lovely. The interior looks like they've put some proper sort of racy buckets in it, so it's not, in a way, not mega everyday usable, but I'm sure it'd be fine once you're in, and you'd have a lovely time driving it.
Well, I mean, our friends at Pistonheads, they sold at the back end of last year a VX220 with 27,000 miles on the clock, for 11 grand. On the auctions, off of the auctions. 11,700 quid. Now, I'm a fan of the VX220, so I reckon that's got to be worth putting on your shortlist for the show.
Okay, well, there we go. Hope that's some help, Mark, and let us know what you buy.
Yeah, so straight into a really short, sweet letter titled Compton Paunceford. Hi, you pair of sweet super strokers. That's almost the name of a 1950s American engine, I would say, the Super Stroker.
Yeah.
Johnny, when you taking Richard on his first auto jumble experience, CMTMB and all that, it's signed off by somebody called Compton Paunceford. In fact, their email address is comptonpaunceford@gmail. Great. Okay. Well, Compton, I have an idea for a auto jumble video. I don't know whether Richard's going to do it or whether he'll run a mile, or whether or not I can get the car in place that I'd like to take him in. But that is what I'd like to do on that side of things. So don't you worry, it's being considered. And thank you for your letter. Yeah.
So as I said to previous listener Mark, let us know about what you buy. I remembered that another listener, Josh, got in touch again. Now, Josh was the chap who wrote in and said he'd spotted this sweet Jaguar XK parked curbside in Leafy, London, in the sort of Westminster area. And he was coveting this car and asking our advice about how to approach the owner. So I think we sent notes on it. Well, Josh has got back in touch with
how many
contact has been made and negotiations have begun.
Oh, great.
He says, I won't reveal the owner's name, but he's a Conservative MP, apparently. He says he still enjoys the car, in inverted commas, but is open to offers. Though I'm not sure that 17,000 miles in nearly 13 years would be enjoying it, but each to their own.
That car is on the cusp of a sort of going downhill in terms of condition because it's a street part London vehicle.
Yeah.
And if he was to catch it at the right time and he could give it some worthy worship, it could be a wonderful thing, I reckon.
Well, here's the thing. Josh says, I don't have the knowledge or the resources in London to inspect the car and be absolutely sure that I'm not buying an absolute dog. There are certain things which need attention with it being barely used, mainly the algal roof.
Paint correction is the answer there, because it will almost certainly have City Bird plop on it. But when people say, "Oh, I'm not sure what I'm buying. I'm a bit nervous. I've got the money, but I don't want to buy an absolute bastard of a car," what I would always say is it's so much cheaper to pay a specialist or a club. A specialist person in a club. So if you go to the Jaguar XJ Owners Club or something like that, and there's someone there who's a technical expert, and say, "Look, I'll give you a day of your time," and that might cost you £200-300, £200-300 to have an inspection of a car to say whether it's good, bad, or ugly. Is so much cheaper in the grand scheme of things than going out and spending 10 or 20 grand on a car that ultimately is a puppy. And so few people do it, and I don't understand why so few people do it. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's true. And I think a lot of these, particularly cars that attract marque specialists like Jaguars and Porsches and BMWs, even that they will happily, for a fee, usually go and inspect a car for you. Josh does ask, he says, what should I be looking out for when potentially gambling on a 13-year-old low mileage V8 Jag, which probably has a dead battery after sitting for about 5 months? Your advice would be cherished. I would say, that is wise advice from my colleague here, which is see if you can find a specialist. There's a place called the Jag Workshop in West London. I'm not affiliated with them, but they did used to service my XJR. They seem to be straight up people. Might be worth dropping them a line to see if they've got somebody who'd go out and have a look at it for you.
Exactly.
But,
if you're able to get the car to a specialist, as in there's one nearby, and pay somebody for what they call a pre-MOT inspection. So in other words, you put the car on the ramp and you kind of do an MOT without it being logged on to the MOT system. Again, that will probably cost you £50 because that's the ramp time. But so worth the money. So worth the money. You'll get a rundown of all the things that it might need, and you can make that decision of like, it needs this much spending on it to bring it up to a level you're happy with. Can I justify that with the cost of the car, or can I use that as a negotiation? It's just really good. It's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Guys, listen, these are facts.
We've been quite sensible there. Anyway, Josh, let us know how things go with negotiating with the mystery MP and his enjoyed but not used Jaguar. Another Joshua has sent a question. Joshua Clark is a very quick one. He just says, question for Richard. When Top Gear had a special, which didn't involve much back to the studio, usually just the intro, was the audience there for the full special, or did they just film the intro after a live recording of a normal episode? So we would tack it onto a full studio show, and then there would be a short edit of the special. So if it was an hour and a half, then there'd be like a sort of 20-minute version of it, just to give people a flavour of what was coming up, so they didn't feel they were hearing an intro to something they hadn't seen. But otherwise, that's how we did it. Just reuse an existing audience, if you like. Josh, you were also asked, not with wanting to leave Jonny out, would you still run an old Merc on chip fat if one became available?
Yeah, I would. I actually regret getting rid of the one that I bought from Fifth Gear because it was excellent. So
what did you do with it?
I sold it.
Sold it to someone.
Yeah, I ran 2 Mercs on chip fat. One that I co-owned with my brother Greg, which was a 124 Series 300D auto. And then I had a 250D manual, which had an aftermarket turbo, and that was the one that we bought on Fifth Gear. And that was a really good car. So yeah, I would, and it smelt glorious. And I realised I actually hate the smell of diesel. So running a diesel on chip fat's good because honestly, it really makes me feel unwell. The smell of diesel. So yeah, I hate it. Absolutely hate it. Yeah, there's certain things since having COVID. Sense of smell has changed a little, and there's certain things I'm very intolerant of. And one of those is there's several things I'm intolerant of in life. One of those is twats, and the other thing is if I go into a restaurant and when they take your order and they go, "Have you got any allergies?" and I go, "Yep, I'm allergic to twats," and the person looks at me like they can't tell whether I'm serious or not. I've done it several times now. I don't know whether it's a dad joke territory. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I have a slight problem with people who don't take the allergy request seriously, because people working in restaurants are just trying to do their job, and they have to be careful. If someone goes, "Yeah, I am allergic to dairy or nuts," whatever, they have to take that very seriously.
Yes.
They don't need your dad joking bullshit when people go, "Oh, just my kids." Shut up.
All right. Okay. So
give a proper answer or say nothing.
Can you edit that out of this conversation?
No, it's fine. I don't think you're the worst offender, but it's just I saw someone on social media to make a joke. I say, "Goes any allergies?" at the table, just going bees. But it's not. They're not interested in non-food allergies, are they? Because that would be a waste of time. Grass. Don't worry, there's no grass in any of the food.
Bad-looking BMWs. How about that? Yeah, I'm allergic to that.
Oh, they do make me itchy.
Yeah,
but it's not strictly relevant to the conversation.
All right.
Anyway,
got time for another question, have we? Hey.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, this one's from a chap called Simon Daniels from Leek in Staffordshire. Dear fellow COBs, car obsessives. I appreciate all the tenuous threads that stitch your wonderful podcast together, even the ones that are vaguely automotive. But I wonder whether you would mind lifting up your collective kilts and letting us listeners discover a little more about your other obsessions or mild afflictions. For me, it's collecting, wearing and selling vintage clothes, namely British defunct brands that are still amazing to wear and own, such as Jaguar and Aquascrotum. It's Aquascutum, etc. I noticed from your earlier Smith & Sniff videos that Jonny appreciates a good watch, particularly Fliegers on Bund straps, as well as, I don't know what that means, Fliegers on Bund straps.
Fliegers, like sort of pilot's watches.
Yes, as well as a penchant for bright Nike trainers and Levi's work shirts. Richard is still a bit of a mystery to me, as he doesn't appear to adorn his svelte frame with any man baubles or designer labels. Please, can you elaborate if you don't mind? Regards, Simon. So, I think actually man baubles or designer labels.
Yeah.
I think you actually are more of a watch pervert than me, or you certainly have been, I think.
I was, yeah. I don't really have any man baubling. I don't really wear jewellery.
Do you know? I bought a bracelet made of a motorcycle chain about 10 years ago, and it's so difficult to put on yourself because the clasp is really quite complicated. I've given up. I've not only given up wearing it, but I'm glad I gave up wearing it because I realised I might look like a shit Richard Rawlins from Gas Monkey Garage. So I haven't. So I don't do that. I have got a couple of other bracelets, and I do wear a mechanical watch almost daily, apart from when I'm barn finding, in which case I dig out my. I've got a Citizen watch, which is like a solar backup one. Is it a Citizen Eco Drive? and
oh yes, yeah,
which I'm fond of. I've got a few watches, but not as many as I used to, and we've talked about that on other podcasts. But I think I might rekindle my desire for that side of things. You've got favourite clothes. You've got shoes that you like, and
I feel like
that you like.
In a parallel life, I would have gone big on like collecting Nike Air Maxes or something, because I do like the design of them, and I do have a pair of Air Maxes, but it's too late now. I'm almost 50. There's not much dignity in a 50-year-old man suddenly becoming an absolute sneaker whore, is there? It just sort of looks a bit like you've missed the boat, or you're having a crisis or something. I don't know. I have been browsing. I might treat myself to another pair for summer, but you know, I think one of the things about being a middle-aged man is trying to retain a modicum of dignity where possible.
Yeah, I think it's okay to dip in and out, and that's what I do. I dip in and out of things like bright trainers. People think that I buy them every 4 weeks, but I really don't. I keep my trainers for a long time. Some of my trainers are 20 years old, and I still haven't worn them out.
Really?
So, yeah, I just clean them up and wheel them out now and again, like a classic car, really, but with a bit more chafy on the feet.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good policy to have, I think.
Yeah.
A question here from a patron who on there calls himself Barry Dakar.
Does he? That's brilliant. I love that.
His real name's Rich. He says, I was at your Eastbourne show last week and failed to ask my question or win a Galaxy flute that I could slip to my wife. So here it is.
A Galaxy flute.
Your talk of Jim Bergerac out of Bergerac reminded me of watching it with the family back in the 80s. At the time, my father also had a Triumph Roadster, Bergerac's famously unsuitable car for general police work. My father would visibly wince and shiver every time Bergerac slammed the car door, and he was in and out of that car a lot. So my question is, are there any TV or film cars that make you recoil in horror at their mild mistreatment?
Oh,
massive explosions and Fast and Furious style nonsense don't count. I'm after casual disregard here.
There's loads. There's absolutely loads. On 70s Cadillacs, they had a soft close boot. And of course, or trunk, as Americans obviously refer to it. And it's really irritating when I see a soft closed door or boot being slammed, because obviously that's the whole point, is it takes the effort away, and you've just fought the technology that the car's got. So that's pointless, and I find that annoying. I know you've got a real ick for park slamming on auto boxes. So a lot of American cars get wedged into park when they're still going.
Yeah. I can't think of specific examples from TV, but I'm sure there have been them, and it does make me
awful.
Slightly cringe.
I've referred to it before, but the film 48 Hours with Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte is, if you want to watch a 59 Cadillac convertible being absolutely punished, kidney punched time after time. It gets driven up and down curbs on semi-flat white wall tyres. It gets understeered harder than I've ever seen a car being understeered. And he puts it in park when I think it's still doing about 10 miles an hour. It's really awful. Watch that. Good film anyway. Lots of 80s swearing and one-liners.
I have to admit that I'm, I suppose, not responsible for, but attached to a mild bit of car abuse that always used to make me wince, which is that during a lot of Top Gear films, back when the show was in its pomp and they'd bought some cheap old cars, Hammond particularly would delight in pulling up and opening his door onto James's paintwork.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously he found this funny because James is a very particular man, and it's the kind of thing that goes through him. But it's the kind of thing that goes through me as well, and I never enjoyed those moments. And I know that probably a lot of viewers just found it funny because they found Richard being annoying to James funny, but they always went through me. And I think I raised it once or twice, like, shouldn't we, we're all supposed to like cars here. It's a bit of a knobhead thing to do, but no one listened. So
yes, in the same way that I find needless destruction on YouTube and Instagram, people seem to like baseball bat car stereos in dashboards and hit with a claw hammer light clusters and center consoles just for views. Yeah. And I don't think it's funny at all. I don't think it's even clever.
No, I was watching one of those the other week where I'm sure people know these YouTubers, usually American, where they were severely screwing up some quite decent cars.
Yeah,
there was no sort of editorial to it apart from that, because obviously we screwed up some cars on Top Gear, so I can't sort of pompously decry other people entirely, but it did feel like the destruction was the only point of these videos, and I was a bit like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this. I'm not enjoying it. But then you look at the number of views they get and you go, okay, so clearly millions of people do find it fascinating. So I don't know what that says about us generally, but I can't quite enjoy those either.
No, I think it's because we've been brought up to look after our stuff, I think.
Yeah, probably.
That's what it's all about.
Do you want to do one more short question?
Yeah. You sound like you're full of energy, Rich, there.
Sorry, because I think I'm very tired. It's just the end of the week and I'm a bit knackered. But I'll do a very, very quick one from David Marden. He's a long-time listener. And he says, have either of you ever got a press car that you needed to review that was so shagged out you had to give it back, damaged or just generally tired?
Oh, tired press car. I don't know about tired. I've had ones which have flashed up issues, as in, the dash lights, and I've thought, if I review this and you see over the shoulder of on the camera that it's got, I don't know, engine warning or please take me to hospital kind of light on the dashboard, I got to mention that as a reviewer, or I say to the manufacturer, look, I've driven the car for like 1 minute and it's had this appear. For example, Smart #1, I drove 2 of them and I've got a review coming out shortly, or a long-termer review on the Brabus and the non-Brabus. Both cars, within days of me having them, had a fault on the passenger side retractable aero door handles. It just wouldn't retract, and it just kept bringing up on the dash, I don't know, retractable door handle inoperable or something like that. It just kept telling me. It's like, I don't care.
Because I jumped in that Brabus one you had the other day when we were together, and it said something slightly weird, like it felt it had been literally translated from another language and it wasn't quite right.
Yes.
And I can't remember what it said.
No, I can't. I've got
Did it say something like door handle abnormal?
That's right. Like operation of door handle abnormal. I think that's exactly what it is. Yeah, it just didn't retract.
It did tickle me, but yes, it's a thing. I to answer Dave's question though, I would say it's rare because press cars are meticulously maintained, precisely because the car company doesn't want you going, oh, I borrowed this car and it was knackered. So no. In fact, I haven't talked about it yet. I'll talk about it maybe in the next main podcast. But when we did our Eastbourne live show, I went down there in a Hyundai Ioniq 5N, which I know it's been out for a while, but I hadn't driven it. So
I've
finally
still
got to
not
have a go in that.
It's offensive.
You should try it.
I know.
I will talk about it more. But what impressed me is that I would imagine, given the nature of that car, it's had a good thrashing at the hands of dozens of journalists. But this press car had 13,500 miles on it.
That's a lot.
It felt drum tight and pretty much brand new. And I know it has a pampered life in as much as it'll have no expense spared on its maintenance, and it'll be looked over meticulously every time it goes back to the workshop, which is, pretty much every week, I guess.
Yeah.
But even so, that's a car with a drift mode and a lot of power, and it will have been ragged. You know it.
It will have done.
It felt pretty solid. Generally, though, press cars don't seem to be allowed to get to that kind of mileage. They are
passed on
quite regularly to make sure that they can't develop any rattles or ticks or anything like that. But the only one I had was years and years ago, like in sort of 98, 99, when I was working at old Top Gear. We had a Freelander, and it was still quite new. We had a Freelander 3-door on loan, and I was reversing it into a parking space in the BBC car park, and it suddenly cut out and it wouldn't restart.
Oh.
I had to push it into the rest of the space. I was not halfway into the space and it went blop and died. And I could not figure out what was going on. And I tried restarting it and nothing. So I pushed it very gently into the space. And then I went upstairs and I rang the Land Rover press fleet person and said, it's just cut out. And I can't work out what happened. It just died. And the fuel gauge is still showing like a quarter of a tank. But I'm just wondering, is the fuel gauge faulty on that car? And very narkily, she went, we're not in the habit of sending out faulty cars. And I said, but you have, because it's just broken down. They just had to come and take it away on a truck. And I never found out what was wrong with it. But when I dared to suggest maybe like the fuel gauge was overreading by a quarter of a tank and that had caused it to snuff out, she was really cross. But it was broken.
You've just reminded me,
early
actually.
Freelander.
Yeah, to finish this, I was supposed to, I'd half filmed a long distance drive review, road trip review of the Lotus Electra R. And it stranded me because, it allowed me to get into it, but it wouldn't allow me to start it. Being an electric car, you put your foot on the brake and press start, or you just get in it and the bum on the seat and the foot on the brake activates it, and it just wouldn't activate. And I'd parked it in the middle of somebody's driveway on a hillside in a really scenic spot. Had to leave it there for 24 hours because it wouldn't find the key. And I'd called a Lotus specialist out and everything. It turns out, annoyingly, the key is a very odd shape. And when it's in your pocket, I think the pressure of it being in your pocket presses a button a lot of the time, a sensitive button, which means it uses all the battery of the key fob much quicker than you'd expect. So it runs its own battery down, and therefore the car can't see the battery, therefore you can't drive the car. And I have to say, it's really bloody annoying. And it's not the first time it's happened, I believe.
That's a disaster.
Which is a shame, because the rest of the car is really impressive.
Well, there we are then. So if you have a question for us, then hello@smithandsniff.com is our address. Put Otosot in the subject line, just helps us to find questions. And we will do this all again next Friday. Until then, goodbye.
Thanks, guys. Cheers. Bye.